Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar on water reuse and the European Green Deal. My name is Marco Citelli, and I'm a thematic expert on environment and resource efficiency at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. This morning, I will accompany my colleague Astrid Severin, also a thematic expert on environment and resource efficiency, for the moderation of this webinar. Before turning to the topic that we will address today, I would like to say only a few words about our housekeeping rules. The webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording with you after it, together with all the presentations that will be delivered. Also, I would like to draw your attention on the right side of your screen, where you have a webinar control panel that you can use to interact with us. While you will not be able to speak, you can use the chat function and submit any question that you may have for our speaker using the question box. We warmly invite you to do so. With regard to the topic and the objectives of today's webinar, I would like to specify that our aim is to offer some insight on the latest EU policy developments on water at the crossroad between circular economy, climate adaptation, and environmental protection, such as, for example, the water reuse regulation. We also want to explore successful regional policies to overcome barriers to water reuse in agriculture, and we want to shed some light on solutions for water reuse in the dairy industry. We will do so by highlighting some achievements of Interreg Europe projects. Now it's time for me to give the floor to my colleague Astrid for introducing the policy learning platform, the agenda, and the speakers who join us today. Thank you, Astrid.
Thank you, Marco, and good morning from my side as well. Whilst the European Union is putting forward policies and guidelines for the water sector, the Interreg Europe community, mainly regional and local authorities, is also busy addressing the challenges of sustainable water management. We have identified more than 80 good practices showcasing highly replicable and cost-effective solutions in water reuse, our subject today, but also on stormwater, urban wastewater, and sewage sludge, water pollution, and water heritage, for example. These are stemming from 13 projects that are dealing with water management at the crossroad of resource efficiency, environmental protection, and cultural and natural heritage. 2 of these are featured today, namely AQUARES and CESME. This webinar is delivered by the Policy Learning Platform of Interreg Europe. We are supporting interregional learning in the areas of resource efficiency and environment, research and innovation, SME competitiveness, as well as low carbon economy. We offer a knowledge hub with news and articles, access to a community of practitioners with events such as this webinar today, and a rich good practice database. We also deliver on-demand expert support services. Next slide, please. These are a help desk for questions. So if you are having questions that we cannot answer directly today, we are happy to do so through our help desk function. We also offer tailor-made matchmakings and online discussions, as well as a peer review service, which is a 2-day intensive exchange with peers that advise you on the challenges that you have in your region. Could be, for example, on sustainable water management. The calls are open, so please don't hesitate to contact us for the easy application process. Our services in the water sector are, for example, already a policy brief on sustainable water management in a circular economy. This is, so to speak, fresh off the press. If we would be printing it, you can access this on our portal. We also already organized a community brainstorming, bringing forward policy solutions for water reuse, wastewater, and groundwater. And we wrote a story about AQUARES, which features some potentials of water reuse. Last week, we had a webinar for those that are interested in financing opportunities that was featuring the green transition under the European Recovery and Resilience Facility. And you can see all the links here and you can click on them when you receive the presentations. Our webinar is today addressing water reuse and the European Green Deal. However, we will have a survey when this webinar is closed, and you can indicate if there are other subjects which you find interesting and which you would like us to feature in another webinar. So I'm very proud to have this distinguished panel of speakers today for our webinar, and I ask our speakers to turn on their cameras. We will have a keynote on recent EU water policy developments from Valentina Bastino from the European Commission DG Environment. Hello, Valentina. And we have several good practice pitches, starting with Manuel Boluda Fernandez from the government of Murcia, which will talk about how to overcome barriers and reclaim water for reuse in agriculture. Hello, Manuel. We have Daniele Cencioni from the city of Bologna, and he is presenting the policy framework on water reuse and protection in Emilia-Romagna. And last but not least, we have Mirella Di Stefano from the company Granarolo. Hello to you as well, who will tell us how they have been applying these rules in the dairy sector in their plant in Bologna. So before I give the word to Valentina, I would like our audience, we have more than 200 people registered for this webinar. We would like to know you a little bit better as well. And we have two little polls for you, which we ask you to kindly fill in. So the first one is, what kind of organization are you presenting? Are you coming, for example, from an EU institution, or a regional or local authority, a water authority, or are you coming, for example, from academia or NGOs? So please fill in this poll and let us know where you're coming from. Okay, you can still vote. We have the results. So very good result here. We see that a lot of people is coming from the regional and local authorities we would like to reach, and also the water authorities. Great. Also to see that we have academia and NGOs participating, very important audience in that sector. So our second poll is going to focus on the expectations of today. So what would you take away from this webinar? So please let us know. Is it some general information about EU water policy? Or would you like to know more about water reuse solutions in agriculture or in industry? Or you're generally interested in wastewater treatment? Or you just want to check out what other regions have been doing so you can learn from them and what they have already been achieving, or what they have been struggling with. So please let us know that as well. No, thank you very much for voting. So here you go. A lot of information is requested actually on EU water policy, but also the experiences that other regions have already been doing, so you can learn from your peers. And in general, on all the solutions we can offer for water reuse in agriculture, industry, and wastewater treatment. So I think very interesting results of the poll. Thank you very much for voting. And with this, we would like to go right away in one of the subjects that interest you most and give the word to Valentina to tell us more about the recent EU water policy developments. Valentina, the word and the camera is yours.
Good morning. I will now open my presentation. Good morning, everybody. My name is Valentina Bastino. I work for the European Commission, in particular in DG Environment, in Unit C1, which deals with clean water policy. And the subject of my presentation today is some of the latest policy developments in water policy in the context of the European Green Deal. On this slide, you will see a bit of an overview of what are the main aspects of the European Green Deal, which was published at the end of 2019 and which is inspiring most of the EU policies in these days. But two main takeaway messages from these slides are the fact that the European Green Deal aims at transforming the EU economy to reach a more sustainable future, and doing so while leaving no one behind. So the element of just transition is also very important. As you will see in the green boxes, there are several aspirations, several goals that the Green Deal sets out. And for each of these goals, the Commission is working or has worked already on a number of initiatives, of strategies, of documents. Some of these have already been published, others are in the making. And I would like to draw your attention in particular to the ones that are very important for our water policy. There's several, obviously. There's for example, the farm to fork strategy, which is about accelerating the shift to a sustainable food system. There's something about zero pollution, which is also very important in terms of water policy. But I would like to focus especially today on the idea of mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy. And I refer in particular to the Circular Economy Action Plan 2.0, meaning that there was an earlier version of the Circular Economy Action Plan. This one is the new one, which was published in 2020. So what's new in the EU water policy when it comes to the Green Deal and circular economy? Well, I've lifted directly from the text of the circular economy some aspects that are to do with water and that are inspiring our work today. There's a part of the Circular Economy Action Plan which is about certain value chains, so certain product areas, and in particular I'm referring to the one on food, water and nutrients. And you can see in italics is the text directly lifted from the Circular Economy Action Plan, where the new water reuse regulation is specifically mentioned, and it says that we will encourage circular approaches to water reuse, and also the Commission commits itself to try to facilitate water reuse and encourage water reuse and efficiency, including in industrial processes. For the moment, the focus is mostly on agriculture, as we will see in a minute. The action plan also announces that the Commission is considering reviewing both the directive on wastewater treatment and the directive on sewage sludge. There's also a section that focuses specifically on circularity in production processes. And in this context, the action plan talks about the revision of the Industrial Emissions Directive, which is also a very important one when it comes to water, and promises to look into ways of integrating circular economy practices in the directive itself, as well as in the reference documents that are produced in the framework of this directive. But let me move now to the water reuse regulation. Every time I mention a regulation, I put near the title the actual reference number so that it's easy to find online in case you're interested in reading the full text. The water reuse regulation has been in force since June 2020, so it's relatively recent, but the rules will start applying well, now a bit less than 3 years' time, on 26 June 2023. This application time is to give member states a bit of a lead time to adapt their current practices to the new rules. The aim is to address water scarcity and droughts, while at the same time safeguarding public health and environmental health as well. It has been estimated that water reuse has a great potential in the EU. In 2015, roughly 1.1 billion cubic meter of reclaimed water were reused in a year, but the potential has been estimated to be up to 6 billion cubic meter a year in 2025. And in the impact assessment that accompanied the proposal for water reuse regulation, it has been calculated that for investments of less or more or less 700 million euro, we could treat over 6.6 billion cubic meter of water per year, while keeping the cost of this water at about 50 cents per cubic meter. Pricing is a very important factor when it comes to taking up reclaimed water. And the potential has been estimating as for a reduction in water scarcity of 5 to 10%. So this could be quite a substantial help. The main provisions of the regulations are the following. The regulation focuses first of all on agricultural irrigation. Why that sector? Because it is one of the biggest water consumers in Europe and in the world, and we thought that the impact was going to be most important in this sector. And the regulation introduces minimum requirements for water reuse in two forms: requirements in terms of parametric values for the quality of the reclaimed water, as well as monitoring requirements. These are set out in one annex to the regulation, and these are mainly to address issues related to human and animal health. A second part is requirements to draw risk management plans, and so the regulation sets out elements that need to be taken into consideration when developing a management plan, and this can address the environmental risks related to a water reuse project, as well as potential additional health risks that are maybe specific to a certain area and are linked therefore to the specific water reuse project. The regulation also introduces requirements to develop this risk management plan, which I just mentioned. It introduces a system of permits with the accompanying compliance checks, and then it tries to foster transparency and access to information. This to increase public acceptance of the practice of water reuse, which is not to be taken for granted. In terms of what's next for these policy areas, well, as committed in the Circular Economy Action Plan, we will be looking at guaranteeing a robust application of the new rules. And to help this, we are planning to publish technical guidance, which is under development, and will be published in June 2022. Of course, it will be important to keep the parameters up to date in light of scientific advances. And as mentioned in the Circular Economy Action Plan, we will try to foster and encourage water reuse also in other applications and consider whether the scope of this legislation could be broadened, for example, to cover industrial water reuse or irrigations of green areas, parks, sports field. An evaluation of this regulation is planned for June 2028, so in 8 years' time. I am now moving to another important aspect that were mentioned in the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. This is quite an old directive. It dates back to, actually, I apologize, not 92, I think it's 91, something that I will need to correct on this slide. This directive has been functioning well. It has undergone an evaluation that published its results last year, and it was found to be effective. It's a simple and very targeted instrument, which has brought the level of water treatment in Europe up to a certain level. In the impact assessment, however, colleagues are looking at ways of improving the directive and bringing it up to date and making it more adapted and in line with the ambition of the Green Deal, namely the zero pollution action plans, the circular economy, and the needs also related to climate change and therefore energy and climate. You will see at the bottom of this slide a sort of timeline. The idea is to publish a new proposal next year, and a public consultation is open to collect ideas from the public. In terms of topics, I'm not going to read them all, but in these boxes you will see the areas where the attention of colleagues is focusing. And in terms of timeline, as I said, the proposal will be published in early 2022, and there's a series of workshops that will be held for stakeholders. The dates are not yet determined, but this slide lists some of the areas that will be addressed in these workshops. The second directive that the Circular Economy Action Plan announced is as a possible candidate for revision is the sewage sludge directive. This is also quite an old directive that needs to be perhaps brought up to date and in line with the Green Deal. And there's a roadmap on this evaluation has been published already in August last year. And at the moment, there is a support study that the Commission has commissioned, the results of which are due to arrive in the third quarter of this year. In this process of preparing the study, there will also be a stakeholder consultation, an open public consultation for the general public, and there is a link at the bottom of this slide, but also targeted consultations with specific stakeholders, which is ongoing. In parallel, the Commission has also commanded another study which will try to analyze certain specific issues, in particular, the identification and prioritization of certain pollutants that may be posing risks and linked to the use of sludge or to the treatment of sludge, as well as assessing and comparing the benefits and the costs and benefits of different types of uses and disposal routes for sludge. On the basis of these two studies, the Commission will then decide and evaluate whether it will be necessary to go ahead with an impact assessment with a view to revise the directive in 2023. I'm now moving to the third directive, yes, to the last directive that is being reviewed. The Industrial Emissions Directive. It has been recently evaluated. It has been concluded that largely it is a directive that works well, but that improvements could be made. And in particular, and you will see at the bottom of this slide, what works less well, there's a part which is about reducing resource use and supporting the circular economy. And I'd like to draw your attention to that because it's precisely there that we're cooperating with colleagues to look at the aspects of water efficiency. So again, I included topics and a timeline, and I'd like to draw again your attention to natural resources that are being depleted and where we are looking at the aspect of both energy use and water use in the industry, with water reuse could really play an important part. In terms of timeline, the impact assessment is now ongoing, and there's an open consultation which is open until well, the next weeks or mid-March 2021. Other ways of involving stakeholders are being planned, stakeholder surveys, workshops, all in this first half of 2021, with the idea of publishing a legislative proposal at the end of this year or in the early part of next year. And with these slides, I come to the end of my presentation. There's here some ways of keeping track of what the Commission is doing. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available for any question you might have.
Well, thank you very much for this impressive presentation and for also the impressive ambitions that we see are being put forward for the policies and directives that you are planning and that are being put in place. I would like to encourage everybody to ask questions. You have a good opportunity. Please use the chat to do so. In the meantime, I would like to ask you, Valentina, what do you think in a region that wants to start with water reuse and has not made a lot of progress yet? Where would they start? What would they do first? What would be your suggestion?
Well, I would certainly indicate to take a look at the regulation and to be on the lookout for the guidance that we will be publishing in 2022. So it is not tomorrow, but it will come. In the meantime, there's already a lot of work that has been going on in Europe as well as internationally on water reuse. So I would encourage a region that is planning to take up the practice to try to get in touch with other member states and their authorities that have already started the practice. In Europe, we have Spain is in the leading group, and we've got water reuse being practiced in Cyprus, Malta, Greece, Spain, Portugal, France, yes, Spain I mentioned, and Italy. So there's quite a few front runners in Europe in this area. I would also encourage to check out various international guidelines. One of the most important, well, maybe not the most important, but one of the really with practical implications would be the ISO standards in water reuse. And the Commission organizes also what we call peer-to-peer workshops. I'm not familiar with the details of that, but it's an instrument that allows authorities from one member state to organize some sort of twinning with other authorities in other member states where they can have an exchange. And this is sometimes used as a good opportunity for learning from the experience for others. I'm sure that through Interreg, there's also possibilities that could be explored.
No, but it's also very interesting that you also mentioned the peer-to-peer exchanges. As I said at the beginning, we are offering the service as Interreg Europe. So if a region has a particular challenge or wants to know how to address, for example, water reuse in the industry or in agriculture, please come forward and we can see if we can organize peers from Europe that can help you to address these challenges specifically tailored to your specific issues in your region. It's an easy application process and we are here and happy to help with that. Well, thank you very much for your very comprehensive answer. I don't know, Marco, do we have any questions?
Well, we have one that maybe for Valentina. We have Antonia Vizerova from the Agricultural University of Plovdiv in Bulgaria, who would like to know whether the Green Deal foresees financing scheme and opportunities for example, demonstration projects in the field of irrigation of reclaimed water. So that may be something that the Commission could reply.
Yes, I have to admit I am not an expert in financing projects, but I can give a quick overview. One initial thing that comes to mind is the resilience and recovery funds that are currently available to member states to face the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic and to facilitate the acceleration towards more greening and more sustainable practices and digitalization. This is a very important opportunity that we are encouraging member states to take up. The problem, it's a substantial amount of funds that is available. Unfortunately, the deadlines are very, very close. I believe, but don't quote me on that, I would need to check, that the deadline for member states to submit these plans is April this year. However, there's also other types of funding that can be used for such practices. I'm thinking for research funds under the Horizon 2020, which was the previous research funding. There were certainly possibilities, and certainly these possibilities have been taken up for projects to do with water reuse. In the next cycle, or Horizon Europe, there will be also headings and chapters of the program that could be devoted to practices in agricultural irrigation. I think this one could be especially interesting for universities, for example, as well as the usual European Commission funding streams related to rural development,
Sure.
to the circular economy. There's also this possibility, and the regional development funds. These are the main ones that spring to mind right now, but there is certainly opportunities to be taken for facilitating the take-up of this practice.
Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to add that I think Interreg Europe has decided to open a new call for existing projects, also those which are already closed, which can address particular challenges in relation to COVID. So maybe in this area, there are particular challenges. You might be able to continue with an exchange of experience under Interreg Europe as well. Well, we're getting more questions, I can see that, but I would like to keep them maybe for the panel discussion a little bit later. And so I would thank Valentina, first of all, at this moment for your great presentation and your answers to the questions, and give the word now to Manuel. So Manuel is coming from Spain, and you have mentioned that this is already quite progressed, and in particular your region, Murcia, has making a lot of progress in reuse measures. So we're really pleased to have you here from the AQUARES project, and we're looking forward to hearing from you how you have been overcoming the barriers towards more reuse of water. Thank you, Manuel.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is Manuel Boluda, and I work for the Water General Directorate of Murcia Regions, the leader partner of AQUARES. Water reuse isn't understood in regions where there is enough water. Even in my regions, farmers only use it when there is another alternative. The main problem is the social rejection. People have no problem to consume vegetable grown with manure, but they don't want to eat products irrigated with reused water. And this is a fact and very difficult to overcome. On the other hand, is water source whose availability is steady over time, is obtained at ground level, unlike to desalinated resources and groundwater resources. In the 90s, the amount of water reused in Murcia was negligible, and nowadays we reuse around 98% of our wastewater. And now the 64% is directly reused for agricultural purposes, and the other 33% is indirect reuse. That means reclaimed water that is discharged into the river, and downstream an equivalent amount is withdrawn for agricultural or environmental purposes. Nevertheless, to guarantee the food safety, an additional treatment of chlorination disinfection is applied. These are the key points of our transformation: high agricultural demand, a transparent, well-financed system, a sustainable planning, and of course, promotion. And our route from nothing to 96% of reusing, our turning point was the creation of the entity for water sanitation called ESAMUR. Its only function is to treat the water, and the collection of attacks called sanitation levy. That is their own finance source. This fact was essential for three reasons: the more transparent, the more efficient, and without money, without financing, nothing is done. And the third point is that tax is very useful to control the wasters and to guarantee the environmental principle, the polluter pays. This system had let them carry out a lot of R&D projects, and their degree of technology is soaring because they're always cash. Who doesn't pay, water supply is cut off. Here you also note this example, and I want to highlight an anaerobic treatment with a very low energy consumption. The PTs that only works in one region, or for example, the recovery of phosphorus through astrocyte, because the phosphorus reserves could be depleted in 2 decades. There are many more, and that's why I've left a link if you want to see the web page or contact them directly or by us. Although now they are absolutely focused on the project on testing COVID-19 in the sewage system. Coming back to the governance issue, I said before that without money, nothing is done, and without planning, nothing goes well. The sanitation plans are action plans approved by authorities to improve their sanitation facilities, especially wastewater treatment plants. And another planning tool, very useful in regions that they don't still have any water reuse regulation, is to inventory the water reuse resources, because it sets a procedure to get this water source. When you already know how much reused water you have available, and there is a clear procedure to obtain it, the goal is to zoom in the treatment point with the reusing point. For that, Murcia region gives grants for connecting the wastewater treatment plants with the irrigators' communities facilities, considering that that water reclaimed is produced in urban areas and is used in rural. The starting point was irrigated lands, and then due to a poor water dotation, and the deficit was covered with less sustainable resources like desalination or groundwater obtained below 150 meters. This measure is very easy to replicate in other places, although in humid regions, the difference between the investment regarding the implementation of other available water sources could be alarming. The evidence of success is our 64% of direct reusing, and the fact is the remaining irrigated communities not connecting to the system demand the more and more calls of these grants. Apart from our own funds and irrigated communities, this measure is financed by the EARDF fund included in every rural development program of Murcia region. Regarding the challenge of the measure, I don't know any irrigator community only supplied with water reuse. But the most common is to combine all the water sources. In Murcia, it's common that the groundwater is too salty and unusable for the most of the crops, and that the reclaimed water is almost obtained without salt, so the resulting mix is usually acceptable, and then we can apply both water sources. The handicap is the traceability of water resource in the system. An example of complementary measure would be to reduce the nitrates and phosphate removal to be applied like fertilizers to the crops, reducing the treatment energy. Another basic point of our water governance is that every drop is important. And that's why Murcia goes for the smart irrigation with water meters everywhere. It's a simple measure, but it's very useful because let us control the losses to distribute the cost and so on. To sum up, the steps that Murcia region followed in the past were: first, we focus on the most viable purpose, in this case, the agricultural activity, the highest consumer. Second, we guide all the policies to make to the potential user as easy as possible. And third, we designed a cost recovery systems that guarantee its survival over time. If you decide to go on the opposite way, improving the wastewater treatment plant, expecting that the user knocks your door, consider that an increasing of the treatment necessarily implies a higher energy consumption and a larger carbon footprint. I'm saying that because all the publication articles that I've read, even the AQUARES deliverable, are done from the view of the final consumer. And I've seen on them a repeated mantra that says, increasing the requirements, the consumer will trust, and everyone will reuse in the future. I'm very far from being an expert, but our experience in Murcia is quite different. We've had to push the potential user to a reuse because the easiest way for them is to reduce their investment and their ground surface. Think that they are less competitive, especially if there's a great difference between the requirement to discharge or to reuse. Don't get me wrong, the safety of the consumer has to be our first priority, but the message I would like to send from my presentation is that the policymakers should pay a bit more attention to the potential users so as to avoid unnecessary treatment, energy, and too much money to discharge water into the river. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for your presentation. I think we've seen a very successful example of going from zero reuse to 96 or even 98%, as you just said. So your measures and your approach must have been the right way to go because you are extremely successful. So thank you very much for this presentation. I think we have some questions. So Marco, let's go right into this, please.
Sure. So one very interesting question relates to overcoming the psychological barriers to the use of reclaimed water. We know that you have undertaken some activities to raise awareness about that. So the question is, what is the role that the public sector can have in educating the stakeholders?
Educating stakeholders. It's a very hard question. But for example, through AQUARES, one of them, the best measure in order to listen to them is to have meetings every 6 months to discuss the most important points. Because with this meeting, maybe you can realize of circumstances that you haven't foreseen. For me, it's the most important to have a dialogue, a constant dialogue with them.
Yeah, I think a constant dialogue is one of the most important things. You create more transparency, and by more transparency and involvement of people, you can create better acceptance. I think it's an important point. I have a question. May I, Marco? I have a question.
Sure.
You have said that you created a specific entity. It's ESAMUR. Do you think that would have been one of the most important decisions you have made? We are looking at other sectors and so on, where it seems that having such a dedicated entity is a key factor for the success. Would you support that?
I think, for example, in our projects, ESAMUR is our most important stakeholder because as I explained in the presentation, they have a very impressive grade of technology. Even they invite all the attendant of this meeting to check these technologies. Of if they want to know some project that they are implementing, all of you are invited for that. I think it's very important to have a very well-financed system which leads to develop this technology great.
Yeah, as you outlined, you have to have the entity, you need the money, you have to have this financial system, plus you need a good planning and a good follow-up to make sure that the system puts well in place. Maybe we can allow one more question.
Yeah, I have an interesting one from Sergio Costa asking Manuel, what kind of guidance have you followed to develop your risk management plan? We know that the Commission just explained that risk management plans are also being are foreseen by the water reuse regulation that will be applied from 2023. But now, what do you do to shape your risk management plan? Which guidance you follow?
Distributing the responsibility between the responsible administration. In the case of the treatment of the water, the responsible is ESAMUR, the charge of to monitoring the risk. After that point to the reducing point, the administration of health is responsible to monitoring the system. And there is a very important is the self-control, because the farmer are the most interested to not to that there isn't any case of pollution, there isn't any risks, especially the irrigator communities, because the water is public in Spain, and they are responsible, have agreed an important role to check that any crops is irrigated with water with a lower quality. This is for me the most important.
Well, thank you very much for also explaining that. The risk management, very important. And as you say, the acceptance is also depending on the quality of the water. So if the quality is not good enough, then there will be no reuse. So very important point. So we have more questions, I know, but let us go to our next case. So thank you for the moment, Manuel, and I'm sure we will come back to you. Our next case, the next two presentations are actually coming from Emilia-Romagna, from Bologna, and we're really happy that we have Daniele Cencioni from the city of Bologna, and then after him he will also have Mirella, who is going to explain how this policy framework has been implemented or how it has influenced the implementation in their plant in Granarolo. So we are starting with Daniele. So the floor is yours, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Daniele Cencioni. I work for the Innovation Research European Project Office in Metropolitan City of Bologna. I was called to speak here, and I thank you to invite me to the webinar. Because the good practice, how Granarolo company reuse the wastewater to have a good safe cost, was judged by Interreg Europe among the best on this topic, and this good practice was inside the Interreg Europe European project CESME, that is circular economy for SMEs. So Granarolo is a multinational dairy company based in the metropolitan area of Bologna, near the homonymous village of Granarolo. But the following speaker, Mirella Di Stefano, will tell you about this best practice. Now I will talk about the regional policy framework on water reuse in Emilia-Romagna region. First of all, I'd like to show you where is Emilia-Romagna region. Emilia-Romagna region is in the north of Italy. I'm from metropolitan city of Bologna, that is the administrative area inside the Emilia-Romagna region. Bologna is the capital city of the Emilia-Romagna region. And there are also many other public administrations in the area. There are 7 unions of municipalities inside the area of metropolitan city, and also 50 that is composed by 55 municipalities. And so metropolitan city of Bologna is in the middle of this chain of administrations. Okay, so I talk about the regulatory chronology of water reuse in Emilia-Romagna. In 2005 was the adoption of the water protection plan. And so the topics were reduction of network losses, reuse of purified waste water, and contain water consumption and reduce groundwater withdrawals. In 2010, homogeneous criteria defined for characterization of industrial wastewater. In 2017, the tariff for industrial waste was regulated. And so, to go in detail, in In 2005, the reuse of wastewater, the Emilia-Romagna region, including in the water protection plan, the reuse of recovered wastewater as a priority measures. And the reuse of purified wastewater is still an activity not very widespread in Italy due to the restrictive limits of the quality parameters to be respected to protect public health, but with great potential for the protection of the water resource in terms of containment of its withdrawals from the environment. And so the Emilia-Romagna region included in the water protection plan the reuse of recovered wastewater as a priority measure aimed at limiting the withdrawal of surface and groundwater to protect inland freshwater. The plan envisages pushes reuse in agriculture of the wastewater coming out of the purification plants located near agricultural areas. According, so the reuse of wastewater recovered from the individual purifier or groups of purifiers is carried out following the drafting of the reuse plan drawn up by the agency of the optimal territorial area, RTSIR, together with the owners of the purification plants and distribution network. According to the water protection plan rules, the rules of wastewater recovered from individual purifier groups of purifiers is carried out following the drafting of a reuse plan drawn up by the agency of optimization territorial area, together with the owner of the purification plant and distribution network. In 2010, homogeneous criteria was defined, and so there was a regional directive. The regional council subsequently dictated the guidelines and the technical methodological criteria to standardize the water characterization activity. Industrial waste resulting from production sites that delivered to the sewerage system through homogeneous methodologies among the various managers operating in the region for the purpose of applying the sewage and purification tariff as part of the integrated water service. In 2017, Emilia-Romagna regulated the tariff for industrial waste, and so the Emilia-Romagna region brought forward the national regulation, which at the end of 2017 regulated the tariff for industrial waste. An investment effort of approximately 70 million euros, which in 2017 led the Emilia-Romagna region to be among the larger regions of Italy that only will not have reported any conviction of infringement. Producers with respect to the adequacy levels of the sewer system and wastewater purification. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, you can send me an email. This is my email address. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Daniele, for your presentation. You have also shown how you have been addressing the issue of water reuse through the time. Still, I encourage people to ask you some questions also to the chat before writing an email, so we can discuss it a little bit today. So my first question would be to you, once you had your policies in place and you started with your reuse plans, how have you been addressing industry? Have you organize specific meetings with them to inform them how to go about it? Is there any guidelines that you're providing?
Sorry, but I'm not an expert on this topic. In fact, as I mentioned before, I work in metropolitan city of Bologna. That is not the region, and so I explain something that is not in my mind, because the region is responsible of environment in our area. So sorry, if you want to write me the questions, I will check and answer as soon as possible.
We will do that. Well, thank you very much, Daniele, for providing us with a policy framework, so we can you can see how this all worked. And I'm sure the region has approached industry, because we have had at least, for example, some excellent results in the plant of Granarolo. Which gives us the opportunity to go to Mirella and ask Mirella to present us how you have been implementing your water reuse plans. So Mirella, the word is yours, and we are happy to listen to you and your work.
Thank you very much. Okay. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, and please do also the click on there and the first choice. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mirella Di Stefano. I'm the environmental specialist of the Granarolo group. And I've been working Granarolo for about 20 years, and I've always dealt with environment issues. I thank the organizers of this meeting for inviting me, and for me it's a great pleasure to be able to bring the Granarolo case to your attention. Granarolo is an Italian food and beverage group with the main activity in dairy production, pasteurized milk, cheese, yogurt, and probiotics. Granarolo is present in 76 different countries around the world, has around 2,700 employees. In total, Granarolo has 11 production plants in 7 Italian regions and 8 plants abroad, 2 in France, 1 in England, 1 in Germany, and 3 in Brazil, and 1 plant in New Zealand. Every year, 850,000 tons of milk are processed. As a result of these activities, an important amount of water is consumed, and wastewater is produced. The wastewater is collected, treated on site, and discharged to the surface water. Because of the cost of city of Bologna water, Granarolo also consumes water from 3 wells on the site. The government policy, however, is to discourage the use of well water. In fact, Granarolo has looked for new technologies to save water in its process. A limited amount of treated wastewater is conditioned and recovered. In this slide, I describe the plant of wastewater treatment present in Bologna. In Bologna, we produce milk, cheese, and cream. Here, water coming from the sedimentation of the purifier is treated through sand filtration and subsequent ultrafiltration to appropriate filter the water sent to final reverse osmosis. Part of this water is sent to the thermal power plant. and the rest is mixed with water coming from the ultrafiltration in order to obtain a suitable mix to supply the cooling towers. Osmosis and ultrafiltration concentrate will be sent to the purification plant. At the beginning of this new technology, the reduction of volume of water collection was about 12% compared to the factory's total water needs. But in 2020, we were forced to stop the plant for important extraordinary maintenance intervention, which were delayed due to the COVID. Therefore, in 2020, the percentage of recovery was 6%. We will expect in this year to reduce more than 6%. Okay, this is now I'm speaking about two other projects, but this project has not started yet. Another case is a new project in Usmate plant in Lombardia, where we want to obtain pure water from a waste product of production. This waste product is exhausted cheese whey. In Italian, we speak about scotta. Now, the exhausted cheese whey produced is concentrated to be sold as a byproduct to livestock farms for direct animal feeds or processing industries. The exhausted cheese whey concentration process is carried out thanks to a reverse osmosis plant that generates permate and retentate as products. After, the permate, instead of being sent to the water treatment plant, undergoes a further osmotic treatment that determines the production of crystalline water, which will be allocated to the cooling system of the refrigeration plant. We have we have many goals in this project. Reduction of water losses, reduction of consumption and optimization of the costs of water supply, reduction of cost of purification of wastewater. But the most important in our company, I say, is a reduction of the risks of overfishing associated with the capacity to use wells and the new best available technologies that require a reduction in water consumption to 2.5 cubic meters ton of raw materials. Now we are at 5.1 cubic meters ton. At the end, I will briefly tell you about another project that is applicable in plants where mozzarella are produced. So in Bologna, for example, or in Usmate in Lombardia. An MF or UF tangential filtration treatment plant is expected to ensure the correct continuous treatment of the farming water and transport of the mozzarella. We have this data. The quantity of water treated daily is estimated at 2,000 meter cubic, to be considered a recovery of 70%. That's all. If you have any question, I don't write my email address, but is Mirella Di Stefano at Granarolo _et. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for sharing this with us, Mirella. It's very interesting to see how you have been applying this in Bologna and also in other places. you have taught us before, the best way is to work with the cheeses, the soft cheeses like mozzarella and ricotta. So that's where you have the best results. So it's very interesting to hear. And I wanted to ask you something before we are going to the questions from the chat. Is what support do you expect from your region to implement better measures for reuse of water? Is there anything specific that you would need in terms of guidance or support?
But from the region or from the Commission, because I have a big perspective from the Commission, because it's very interesting that Commission will work on water saving in the industrial sector, because we are listening before about water use in agriculture sector. We know that agriculture sector is more hydro-exigent than industrial sector, but we want to act in our plants, and we know that now we are out of this best available technique, and we are sometimes not sure that at the end in 2023 we are able to stay in the right line. I don't know if the region Emilia-Romagna can help. For me, can help our plants, but it's very important that Commission helps all dairy sector, because mozzarella or ricotta are products very, very hydro-exigent.
Thank you very much. So yeah, you're having expectations towards the Commission, and I think at the later point, once it filters down from the national to the regional level, that will also concern your region. But certainly a good exchange of practices in this area will also help. So I go to Marco. Do you have any questions directly for Mirella?
Yeah, I have one for Mirella. You described a circular approach that you have adopted at the level of the plant, and you described the fact that you reuse the byproduct of the production of soft cheeses like mozzarella. So if you could elaborate more on that, how that byproduct comes back to the system, how it is reused.
How? Can you
byproduct, you describe the byproduct that is comes from the production process, and you said in the presentation that you that the byproduct comes back to the system for refrigeration purposes.
If I don't understand the question, the percentage of the quantity of the product.
Yeah, for example, general question on the byproduct of the production.
Yes, I don't know exactly, because I'm not a technician, and so
no worries.
My colleague, but maybe the numbers are for us note, so I can ask her. Yes.
No worries. We will come back to it later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unmuted.
So thank you very much. We will come back and we will ask this question so that your technician can answer it, so you will get more specific information. Well, I would like to thank you also, Mirella, for your great presentation and for bringing us to this world of dairy production. It's very interesting for us to learn more about it. And I would ask all our speakers now, please, to turn on their cameras, and we will have a little panel discussion. We have many more questions that have come in, which we can talk about. So first of all, I think the question from Mirella was there's a lot of expectations towards the European Commission. So maybe Valentina, you can say a little bit of something to that to find out how you can meet these expectations and needs of the industry.
Thank you. Yes. Perhaps I should start with a clarification. From something that Mirella said, I had the impression that they believe that the parameters and the requirements of the water reuse regulation that I presented earlier will also apply to industry as of 2023. And in case that was the understanding, I would like to clarify that it does not apply to the industrial sector. So the water reuse regulation is currently focusing only on water that is used in irrigation of agricultural fields. And I take this chance, by the way, to also clarify, linking to the presentation of Manuel, that because of the higher the treatment, the purer the water, the higher also the energy consumption, and because of the implications that this has for resource use and climate change, I should have specified perhaps in my presentation that the parameters that we have put forward are what we call fit for purpose, and therefore there's different levels of treatment depending on the type of crop that you will be irrigating. So something that needs to be put on the market and consumed raw, for example, a tomato, will require a higher level of treatment. While if you're irrigating for fodder or for energy crops, then the quality is much lower, because it would be a bit silly to put lots of energy into treatment for something that gets very rarely near a consumer. So when it comes to industry, I hear with interest that the ears of the industrial sectors are open and listening. When it comes to the water reuse regulation, we have an obligation to re-evaluate it, and in that evaluation consider enlarging the scope to other sectors in 2028, which is a few years down the line. We are internally reflecting on how we could best go about this, because I personally don't have yet a very clear idea as to whether the water reuse regulation as an instrument, as it is structured, could be suitable for just an extension to other industrial sectors. I'm still studying the situation. I'm not an expert, but I have the impression, and here maybe the fellow speakers can correct me, that every sector needs their own specific characteristics for the water, depending on the use that they would be making of it. I've collected some information. I have the impression that some turbines or cooling towers are probably subject to biofouling and scaling, and these are the aspects. But other industry might have different expectations. So I find it a bit difficult to come with very specific parameters for each single sector. But this is to be studied. What we are doing at the moment is that we're working very close with the colleagues that are working on the Industrial Emissions Directive. As I mentioned, one of the aspects that so far have not been as efficient as the avoidance of emissions to the environment is the aspect of resource efficiency. And we are keen on developing that aspect, because we I cannot speak for the whole Commission, but in my research, I'm starting to come to the conclusion that the best available technology process would probably be a good way of addressing the specificities of each sector. So what I can say is that the Industrial Emissions Directive is currently under review. The impact assessment is being prepared, and this aspect will be looked at. Now, I would encourage any stakeholder to try to get involved as much as possible. I did include some links in my presentation on how to access the public consultations, but I'm very happy to also receive mails from stakeholders and help them get in touch with the colleagues that are dealing directly with this process, so that you can keep an eye on possible webinars that are being organized, or we often, as the Commission, when we are reviewing something, organize workshops and consultations to collect the views of those that ultimately will be impacted by the legislation. The timeline, if I recall correctly, is for a proposal at the end of this year or early 2022. So the time to get involved would be now. With the colleagues in the industrial emissions.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think the time is now, also with the consultations, so that you can still participate. You can put forward your positions, and we are very happy and ready at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform also to support any more webinars or exchanges, as you just said. Maybe specifically focusing on industries or on a specific industry sector. So if there is a need there, please let us know in our survey after the webinar or in the chat, and we can address specific issues there. But I've seen there's many more questions. Maybe also I can give the word to Marco.
Yes, there are some questions indeed for the Commission, for example. One of our attendees is asking whether you have plans to put forward a drought desertification directive, a directive against desertification and drought. That is one question. And another one, maybe with an opposite character, is always from the Commission, and it's about potentially the adoption of further criteria to regulate the irrigation in the agricultural sector, not irrigation from with reclaimed water, but irrigation with rainwater and surface water. Do you have plans to do that?
Thank you for the questions. Specific plans for a desertifications directive, not that I know of. However, what I can say is that we do have work ongoing on droughts management, as well as floods management, because with climate change we have sometimes both problems with too little water and sometimes with too much water at the same time. So we do work on this aspect as well, and there has been communications specifically on drought management. Right now, on top of my head, I do not recall the exact dates when they were published, but it is not a new strand of work. With the Joint Research Center, there's also work ongoing on a European Droughts Observatory. So there is work ongoing on the issue of droughts and floods. Just recently, last week or the week before, I believe, a communication on adaptation to climate change, adaptation and mitigation, was published. This is the colleagues in DG Klima mainly working upon, but as DG Environment, we are obviously very closely involved. And we have been working a lot with the colleagues about the issue of water scarcity. Therefore, measures to increase the efficiency of water use, including water reuse, but not only. It's not just about agriculture, it's across the board. So it's in the renovation sector, building sector, etc. So there is a lot of thinking going into more efficient energy and water and or resource use. So that's also another thing that is in the is out in the open now. You can take a look at this adaptation strategy. There's plenty of actions under that.
Thank you.
On the second question,
short answer, please. Just a short answer, please.
Yes. On the intention to regulate irrigation water in general, again, I have to refer to rather, this would be what colleagues in DG Santé, so dealing with public health, would be working upon. So I am not aware of specific plans. it is, however, an aspect that we are a bit thinking about as well in DG Environment, linked to the dossier reclaimed water, all in the interest of making reclaimed water attractive, because it is sometimes of better quality, or often maybe better quality than any water that you might withdraw from a surface water body. And I leave it at that. I'm happy to take any follow-up question if needed.
Thank you, Marco. I think we have also questions for Manuel, for example. Can you?
Well, I have a first question in front of me is for the Italians. There is one person that is aware of the social rejection in Spain of water reuse. So this person is wondering whether in Italy there is a similar concern that if water reuse faces resistance from the public. So if Mirella and Daniele know something about that, could elaborate, would be great.
I think the social rejection is the weakest point, but the problem is, I think the public administration should act in the new generation, and it's going to be it will take us a long time as a social change, because probably, as I said in my presentation, people don't have any problem to consume products grown with manure, but however the water reuse has a very worse images, and it's very difficult because in my projects there are a lot of good practices identified in order to improve the image of the water reuse, but I think it takes us a long time to change the society.
How is the situation in Italy? What is the public image for reuse, water reuse? Do you have any resistance there, for example, Mirella?
No, I don't know if it is a resistance, but the problem is when you produce a food product, you have other laws about the safety of the products, and the use of water. It isn't possible in all the phase of the process. So we are only a part of our process that can use the water. So the volume of water is limited, and this is the big problem. Yes.
I would like to comment a good practice carried out by ESAMU, always in my region, which consisted of going to the school and explain to the children and play with them and speak about speak about the water reuse and how sustainable is this way. The children speak with their parents, and I think we only have 1 year. We have applying this measure because of the COVID. We couldn't do it this year and the previous year, but I think it's a very good possibility to reduce the social rejection.
Yeah.
Unmuted. If anybody else has good examples for addressing this issue? I don't know, that the social rejection can be overcome. Maybe Daniele, do you have anything like this in Emilia-Romagna as well? Any specific programs that you know of?
Sorry, but I don't know. I think personally the first thing is to start from school. As also for waste management, the same from school, from children.
I can speak about the school of my children. That in many lessons they speak about water use or water saving, and I speak about them. And good idea is very good school, because they speak about the 17 goals, and they speak about I don't remember the number, 6 or 12, about water saving, and the lesson is about this water use or water saving. What daily you do about at your house, in your house. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is. I think that sounds very good, and I think we know it from the waste sector as well. Children are a very important point of starting the public perception.
Absolutely.
However, this might also be, we also have an important task to do here with the farmers, with the industry. So specific programs should also be directly focusing on them, on these audiences. So maybe Valentina has tried to say something about it.
Thank you. I do not have very specific examples to offer. What I wanted to say is that we are, the Commission, very well aware that the social resistance can sometimes be an obstacle, and we have heard from our member states how important it is to involve the surrounding populations, all the stakeholders in an area for a water reuse project to succeed. So this aspect is also partly addressed by the regulation, with provisions about communications and the involvement of stakeholders in a water reuse project. I just wanted to point out that I personally am convinced that if you get to a stage where you realize that you got less and less and less water, then social acceptance will proportionately increase, well, inversely increase, because you will need to start looking at other possible sources. And I think it is possible to get people on board. We've seen the good projects happening in Spain, and I just wanted to recall that in some countries in the world, the rate of reclamation of wastewater is massive. It's like around 80–90%, and it is sometimes brought to drinking water standard. I'm thinking of Singapore, for example. So if you can get the population to accept as drinking water something which has been treated, then I think it is possible to improve through engagement, improve the acceptance of the practice.
Well, thank you very much also to Valentina. Before we go to a last round of comments, I would just ask Marco, we have one last question maybe with a short answer. That would be great.
Let's see. Maybe, yes, we have one concerning the support to, concerning the support of water reuse in the industry. Do you think that current water tariffs are supportive of water reuse in the industry or not? This may be answered by all our speakers, maybe the Commission or the others as well.
Yeah, maybe Valentina, you would like to start, and this is about the financial aspects, and maybe we can also make this a last word of comments, like what is this financial aspect having in terms of impact?
I believe that the speakers from the industrial sector might be better able to reply. I'm just offering a consideration, which is that under the Water Framework Directive, there's provisions about the correct pricing for water services. And generally, water treatment is considered as one of the water services. Now, I'm not an expert on these particular aspects, but I do believe that there is indeed something about the pricing of water that could really play an important role in incentivizing the use of certain waters. And I also know that in some member states, and perhaps Manuel can tell us if there's something similar in Spain, but the price the price of reclaimed water is subsidized precisely to make it economically more attractive and get the farmers to try it out. And then the process generally leads to more acceptance, the farmers seeing that the water is actually possibly cleaner and thus creating a sort of virtuous circle. But yeah, in terms of industrial tariffs on that, I'm not really an expert, I can't say.
But I think it is also a very nice last word from you. So I will give the word to maybe Manuel to also sum up and at the same time let us know what he thinks about the pricing issue and its influence. You're still muted. You're still muted, Manuel. Sorry, Manuel, you're muted.
For me, the price of the water is one of the most important issues because without financing, it's very difficult to do things. In the case of the industry, in our case, all the water we used by the industries is an agricultural activity. We can, in that case, we can demand more for the industry, the industrial sector, because the agricultural activity consumes a lot of resources. Regarding the price, we have at the beginning we had a lot of problems to promote the reusing among the farmers, because they believed that they were going to have problems with their products in the market. And I remember when the first measure was to offer this water free without any additional cost. And the second measure is the good practice, as I explained in my presentation. Otherwise, we have a lot of the advantage is when the first irrigators communities start to reuse and the other ones see that the system works. It's the best promotion that you have to do for the farmers, I think.
Thank you very much for these words, and I'd also give the word to Daniele and then also Mirella for their last words, and also maybe some consideration of the pricing issue.
But we are convinced that treated wastewater is an effective alternative water supply. By boosting supplies of good quality water, in addition to water savings, it can help address water scarcity. Reusing water after appropriate treatment extends its life cycle, thereby preserving water resource. Maybe our company have to go in this direction. It's impossible to think another way.
Thank you very much, Mirella. I think you're right. It's impossible to go in any other way. It's the right direction.
Yes.
Daniele, just as the last word.
Oh, it's okay. I can give value to the discussion. Thank you to the
I'm sure you can give value to the discussion you have already. So thank you very much for your contribution. Well, I would like to thank our speakers for making all their valuable contributions, for sharing what they have been doing and their challenges. And I would also like to thank everybody for the interesting questions. We have not been able to answer all these questions. But however, as I said before, we will be back. We will be answering these questions afterwards. I would also like to thank our team for organizing that. So a big thank you to Marco and also to Lotte, who is organizing everything in the background. And last but not least, there is going to be a little survey. So if you want to have more information or webinars on similar subjects, please fill it in. Let us know what you find interesting. And with this, I would like to say goodbye for now. And thank you for joining this webinar on water reuse. That was very interesting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.